Chase your purpose, find your purpose. It's perhaps one of the biggest lies that we've been told by mindset gurus and by self-development coaches and self-help books. Because, my friend, you can keep chasing, you can keep looking, you can keep going out there, you can keep digging, you can keep trying to find it somewhere drifting in the wind, but you will never find it. The more you chase it, the more you run away from it. Because, my friend, purpose isn't something that is found out there. Purpose is something that is created within. And we have been chasing this purpose our whole life. And this is exactly why we are now at this point where we have an epidemic of people who just feel lost, who don't know what their purpose is, and who in the loss and the lack of purpose and the absence of purpose go to seek out more of the distractions in the external world, like drugs, porn, alcohol, parties, women, whatever it is. Pick your poison, right? And it's slowly but surely numbing people from what they can truly be. Because I believe that once you truly unlock that purpose that is already within, and I'm going to show you in this video one shift that will change everything for you. It will show you exactly why all of the stuff that you've heard about chasing your purpose and finding your purpose is fucking bullshit, and how you can unlock it from within. And I believe that once you unlock it from within, my friend, you will start to perform at such a high level, because everything that you do is in line with that purpose that you've created within. This is why so many achievements feel empty at this point for you, because most people, they perform to achieve and then they expect purpose to arise. But this is not how it works. It starts with purpose. And if you have the right purpose, then every single action that you take will create performance that is in line with that purpose, which will create achievement, which is in line with that purpose, which will create a positive feedback loop. Because now, and I'm sure that you've experienced this in some way or another, you might have thought that you had a purpose, but once you've achieved that purpose, or once you've fulfilled that purpose, you were left asking yourself a question: is this really it? Once you have reached that peak, you've probably asked yourself the question, is this really it? And you've probably felt empty. You've probably felt a lack of purpose. Now, this is exactly what I experienced myself as well. So I had a purpose: become financially free, escape the 9 to 5, reach this lifestyle, get the girl, the penthouse, the watch, the first class flights, the car, build this life, right? Buy a house for my mom. I hear a lot of entrepreneurs say this thing. A lot of men, they say this thing: I want to buy a house. Well, I'm very sorry to tell you this, guys, but this isn't purpose. And this is exactly why you feel empty. Why, when you reach these things, you're at the top asking yourself, is this it? Because, my friend, these purposes, these things are fake. And the chance that you are running on a fake purpose is very, very, very likely. So if you're watching this video and you want to understand what it exactly is, this is what we're going to go over. I'm going to show you what a fake purpose really is, because most men are living on fake purposes and they dress it up as something that is real, but it's exactly the reason why they feel empty after achieving all of these things. Now, there are 3 different sorts of fake purposes that men can be running on. We have an escape purpose. This is basically trying to escape a situation that you have found yourself in the past, right? So, prove I'm not my father. I don't want to be poor again. I don't want to be the kid who got bullied. This is very powerful fuel, but it burns you the moment you escape, because the goal was away from, not towards to. So, for example, I grew up in a family, we weren't poor necessarily, but we didn't have a lot of money. So big thing for me was, I want to never be poor again. But this is not something that is self-authored, right? This is basically a result of a condition that I grew up in, and this is me trying to escape something, which isn't a fulfilling purpose. You have the conditioned purpose, inherited from family, religion, culture, never really examined. It feels like yours because you've held it for your whole life. Maybe you grew up in a successful family, right? This is a condition, or the smart kid identity. The reformed black sheep. I always felt like a black sheep. These things, I needed to prove myself because of this, right? The black sheep in the family, and I needed to prove myself. Make my parents proud identity, right? The cultural script of masculinity itself, what your culture actually deems a masculine man to be, what it exactly is. And this is a script that most people actually inherit without really thinking about it. And a mimetic purpose, and this is a very big one, especially for a lot of men, borrowed from social media mentors, the algorithm. We don't actually know what we want. We want what we see other people wanting. And this is actually backed by science a lot as well. So when we look at people online, for example, Andrew Tate or Iman Gadzhi, or we look at Dan Bilzerian or these things, then we often mimic these things as a purpose for ourselves. But we confuse these things, because one of the things, one thing that all of these things have in common is that they all generate motivation. All three feel like purpose because they generate motivation, but motivation isn't meaning. And this is why once you achieve all of these things, most of it doesn't really feel like you want it to feel, because none of these things were designed by yourself. They were basically even given to you. You were mimicking people, or you were trying to escape something. And this is what most people experience. This is why most high performers, and I'm sure that you know some of them, people that got extremely rich, that became extremely successful, yet they felt empty. Like the money doesn't do anything for you. You'll notice this, that at a certain point when you start making money, money doesn't really matter anymore. It doesn't do anything for you. It doesn't make you happy. Like making money makes you happy, but then there is a point where after that, it just doesn't do anything for you. It's not fulfilling, right? Because it's inherently not something inside you. So a lot of guys ask, what is my purpose? But this is the wrong question. Purpose doesn't come first. Identity does. You do not find your purpose and then you become someone. No, you become someone and then purpose emerges as that natural expression of that self. So purpose is something that is extremely personal to you and to me and to everyone. So this is why you cannot find a purpose when it's basically not authored by yourself. So your purpose is extremely personal, and this is what you have to understand. And the right questions that you should ask are, who am I when no one is watching? When no one is rewarding me and when no one told me to be this? There's a good exercise that we can do, that I do with my clients as well, is that look at the thing that you've worked hardest for in your life. And now ask, if my family had been different, if I had had different parents, if I was in a different country, different class, would I still be doing this? Or sometimes you can even ask yourself, if I wouldn't have my family, for example, if I wouldn't have all of these things, if I wouldn't have my social media account, for example, if I wouldn't have all of these followers or whatever it is looking at me, then would I still be doing this exact same thing? If the answer is no, then you're not chasing a purpose, but you're answering your conditioning. And this is why once you reach these things, you actually feel empty. And this is why most high performers find themselves in. So who are you really? This is what it's all about. It's about building identity, guys. Because again, people try to find purpose through performance and achievement, right? This is why they never find purpose. And this is why they keep hustling, keep going, keep moving the goalpost. But if you build a strong identity, then you will let purpose emerge from that identity, because you know it's already inside you, but you just never had the time to really build your identity. So the question is, how do we build the identity, and why is this so hard? Why are you here? Well, let's look at some neuroscience, because this is the part where it really makes sense. I'm not going to give you some fucking surface level bullshit motivational talk. I'm going to show you what's really going on and why you're actually suffering from this lack of purpose and how you can actually change it. But in order to change it, you need to first understand what's going on. And this is where neuroscience takes front and center. So in order to build your identity, you need silence. This is just how it is. You cannot build an identity if you're constantly distracted. So your brain needs time to construct identity while it's not being put in, while it's not experiencing input. Sorry. Right. So here's what you need to understand. Your brain has a background process, right? Like an app running silently when your phone screen is on. Neuroscientists call this the default mode network. It's a literal translation, because it is what your brain defaults to when you're not actively doing anything. When you're staring out a window, when you're in the shower, when you're walking without your phone, when you're laying in bed not asleep yet. And scientists have actually proven this, that once you get into an MRI machine, people thought that when the brain was off, it wasn't really doing anything that much. But they discovered that once you through the MRI images, there's that the brain is actually extremely active, and it's running a very, very specific and very intense process, and that process is building you, okay? So the default mode network is where your brain stitches your memories, your experiences, your values, your sense of past and future into one single coherent thing called I. This is where you figure out what you actually think, what you actually feel, what you actually want, and it's the workshop where your identity gets made. And this is the part that nobody tells you. It only runs when nothing else is. The moment that you pick up your phone, open an app, watch a video, scroll a feed, the DMN goes quiet. Your brain switches modes, it stops building, and you start processing input. Now, you cannot build an identity in a brain that's never given the conditions to build one. And obviously, we're constantly aware, we're constantly on with these things. There's constantly inputs everywhere. There's $1 billion industry that is specifically designed to keep you hooked to these things, to make sure that you never activate that DMN, default mode network. So obviously that is a big reason as to why we cannot find ourselves, is because we don't have the time, or we don't never sit still enough to actually build ourselves. Okay. A man who lives this way doesn't have an identity. You don't have an identity crisis. Okay. You have an identity vacuum. The workshop that you use in order to create your identity has just never been opened, or has just barely been used. This is why it's so hard. And I'll explain to you exactly, also close to the end of the video, how you can actually change this, how you can actually get this part of your brain to fucking activate, because that is eventually what will build the purpose, what will build all of the other stuff, okay? Not the other way around. I know it's very frustrating. I know that we like to go out there and find our purpose, but it's just simply not what it is. In order to find purpose, in order to become the best version of yourself, you need to shift your identity, okay? Now, your brain is basically, you can see it as two factories that your brain has, okay? So you have the identity and self factory, which manufactures you, and then you have the processes and task factory, which is responsible for task, processes, information. This is the thing that fucking executes, okay? Now, the part of your brain that needs, that builds you, only operates when input stops. It needs silence, okay? And the part of your brain that processes, tasks, information, executes, it needs inputs, right? So the phone, work, content. So why is stillness so hard? Because this is eventually the key. This is where it all comes down to. It's obviously because of the fact that we have this phone. Now, your dopamine addiction plays a very big part in this. Let me just lower this line a little bit, guys, because otherwise I'm looking like a fucking ghost. Dopamine addiction plays a big part. Dopamine addiction isn't the reward that you get once you see the notification. Dopamine is actually something entirely different. It's one of the things that a lot of people have a misconception about. They think that dopamine is the chemical that you create once you hit the reward, but dopamine is actually the signal that is created that makes you grab your phone, that makes you go towards the phone, right? So every time you get a dopamine hit, the brain adapts. This is where it gets interesting. It lowers your baseline. So your neutral state, the way you feel when nothing's happening, gets worse and worse. And stillness doesn't feel like peace anymore, but it feels like withdrawal, okay? This is why men cannot sit still. This is why, and whether you tell yourself that it's the phone or whether you always keep being busy, it's the exact same thing for the same reason, the withdrawal kind of thing. It's not lack of discipline. Your baseline has just been pulled so low by years of constant simulation that doing nothing literally feels like suffering. The body interprets the absence of dopamine as a problem to solve. So the brain sends a signal something is wrong, fix it. And that is dopamine. That is literally what it is. And you reach for the phone, or open the laptop, or schedule another meeting, or start a new project, or watch porn, eat, train, anything to make the discomfort go away. So you're not chasing a reward, you're escaping withdrawal that comes from being still. And this is something entirely different than what most of us think. And this is why dopamine detoxes and all that kind of stuff are interpreted into the wrong way. But here's the part what most people miss. When I say sit in silence, most of you can't. Not because you're undisciplined, but because your nervous system has been trained for decades to treat silence as a threat. Every notification, every scroll, every hit of porn, every win, every workout, every email, these aren't pleasures, these are anticipations. Your brain releases dopamine before the thing happens. Dopamine is the chemical of reacting, of the next. And every time you reach, your brain adjusts. It raises the bar. Your neutral state gets worse. Your baseline drops until eventually doing nothing feels neutral. It doesn't feel neutral. It feels like withdrawal. Again, this is why you can't sit still. This is why you reach for the phone the second a conversation pauses. This is why you open 3 tabs the moment the task gets boring. This is why vacation feels uncomfortable for the first 3 days. This is why you keep being distracted. You're not bored. You're in withdrawal, okay? Now, the part of your brain that builds your identity, that figures out who you are, runs on the exact state that you've trained yourself to find unbearable. So you've created a perfect prison. The way out feels like the way in. The cure feels like the disease. Stillness feels worse than lostness. So we decide to stay lost. This is where most people find themselves in. When I learned this whole concept kind of broke everything for me. It kind of made me realize how often we are just literally addicted to loss because we're trying to escape the stillness. So you stay busy, you stay scrolling, you stay running, and then you wonder why you've achieved everything you set out to achieve and still don't know who you are, still feel empty, still feel without purpose. You ran from the only state where you could have actually ever been built. Okay? Now, the goal is obviously if like so I'm reverse engineering this shit for you guys. Like I don't want to give you again, I don't want to give you some fucking mumbo jumbo motivational speech that's not going to help. This is also, by the way, the reason why you can listen to any podcast that you want. You can read any book, but you cannot, that doesn't work. You cannot read yourself to a purpose. You cannot listen to yourself to a purpose by podcast. It just doesn't work like that. So this, and we think it does because it keeps us from being in a state that we actually need to find ourselves to create purpose. But this doesn't work. You need to cut out all of these distractions. And what the idea is, the goal is to help build this side of yourself again, to basically activate the factory side of your brain that builds the identity. Now, how do you do that? How do you build the self? So you have to turn back on the factory. Okay, that's the most important thing. How do you do that? Subtract before you add. Strip away the inputs telling you who to be, at least temporarily. This is why when you do things like identity shift, when I work with clients, for example, I tell them like, quit with all of the podcasts and all of those kinds of things, okay? Because those are all things telling you who to be. And this is all input. And at least you have to lower the input, right? I assume, and this is impossible basically for a lot of people, you cannot just cut out everything completely because the addiction obviously is so big. And this has a lot to do with your nervous system as well. So regulate nervous system and lower dopamine baseline. That's the goal. And it comes down to the most simple things, guys. It's literally breathing technique. So I do box breathing like 3 times a week to regulate the nervous system. Absolutely changed my life. I do meditation, not every day, but I definitely do meditation 3 to 4 times a week as well. These things, you don't have to spend an hour long doing some fucking breathing techniques. You can literally do this already for 5 to 10 to 20 minutes. Meditation, 5, 10, 20 minutes, maybe once or twice a day in the mornings. And the big things, it's just the simple answers, guys. No content consumption in the morning, evening. For the first 90 minutes of your day are extremely important. It's where your brain is most receptive. What you feed it will shape your day. Now, most people can't do this 90 days. So the first 90 days of their day, they are required to look at their phone for work or this or that. So I'm hearing you say, well, I can't do this. Then do the first 20 minutes. Do the first 30 minutes, all right? When I wake up in the morning, I wake up at 5, take my cold shower, do my push-ups, and the first 30 minutes of my day, I don't do anything. The only thing I do is I post a story of me doing the push-ups. That's it. Like 1 minute, and I put my phone away. And there is just 30 minutes of nothingness, right? No music, no podcast, no books, nothing of that sort. And I just sit and I allow myself to think. And I do this for 20 to 30 minutes, and it's completely changed my life. It's completely changed the way that I go throughout the days because I don't start my day with all of this fucking input. I give myself some fucking time to actually shape myself, okay? So what you feed it in the morning will shape your day. You don't have to become a monk, but subtract the volume of input. The goal is recalibration, okay? I'm going to reverse engineer this shit for you guys. Then second step is become the observer. Observing what surfaces in your mind once the inputs are gone, okay? Become the observer. Journaling, learning to hear yourself again, the thoughts that you've been too busy to think. I'm pretty sure that once you've realized this, that in the moments that you're really not doing anything too much, you start like the most insane thoughts come up about some fucking girlfriend from 10 years ago, something about your parents or this or that, or a hobby that you had when you were 10 years old, or like this is your brain finally able to catch up, all right? This is your brain finally able to process and construct more of the self, okay, more of the identity. And this is also where you eventually become most creative, where you will start to understand what it exactly is that you really, really, really want. And this is what most people are never doing, right? So you finally have time for the thoughts that you've always been too busy for to think. I think that's a great line. This is very important. Pay attention to what you envy. Envy is a leak in the dam of your real desires. So when you find purpose, when we talk about purpose comes from building a strong identity. A strong identity is built upon is created from understanding what you really want, is understanding what you really are. Okay. Now, Carl Jung calls this the shadow work, but it's recognizing the signal. Envy is one of the few honest signals in our that our psyche ever sends. And as men, we think that envy is a bad thing, so we try to suppress it, we try to push it away. But it's often the exact thing that tells us what we really want. Envy is an amazing tool to understand where you want to head into. Now, envy is also very specific because you can be envious to one specific thing that a person has. You're not envious to everyone that is richer than you, for example, but there are specific things that you envy, and those things usually tell you a lot about what you really want. So the people that you envy are showing you the shape of your unlived life. Now, why do we do all of these things? Again, guys, because in order to find your purpose, you're not going to find it out there, right? You're not going to find it by fucking mimicking someone else, by chasing it, by trying to find it, by trying to dig it up. You're going to unlock it by understanding who the fuck you really are. Because, again, purpose is extremely personal. Your purpose is so personal because it's about something inherently in you. We can have the same actions, the same outcomes that our purpose drives us to, but the reason as to why those actions and those outcomes and those achievements are generated in the first place, those are very personal to you and me. So we can have exactly the same physical things, physical actions that we take, but the purpose behind it can be completely different because it might be different for you than it might be different for me. This is why purpose doesn't work when you mimic someone. And this is why discipline and consistency become automatic once you unlock that purpose, because it's in line with who you are and who you want to be. And then the fourth thing, guys, is you have to sit with boredom long enough that a DMN comes back online. It's just how it is. The practice, choosing to be conscious in the absence of input. So again, first 20 minutes of your day, very important. I recommend doing box breathing and meditations a couple times a week. Like if you want to find your purpose, guys, find your purpose, sit still, do this for 30 days. I guarantee that you will gain direction. You will gain clarity. You will see where you want to head into. You will understand what it is that you need to do, because once you unlock that purpose and you really understand it, there is no question anymore about what you need to do, how you need to do it, or why you're doing it. You know exactly what you need to do, how to do it, and why you're doing it. And that is when the tasks and discipline and consistency don't require you to put in so much effort. They just become a byproduct of who you are, which is where I want you to go to, which is what I want you to understand. This is why, again, guys, you cannot read your way to a self. You cannot podcast your way to a self. You cannot course take your way to a self. You can only sit your way to a self. And the men who do this consistently will become unrecognizable in 2 years' time. Not because you did more, but because you finally did less. I will tell you, if you do this for 30 days, the things that I've just given you, you will recognize the things in yourself that you really wanted. You will find your purpose in 30 days. I'll guarantee it. If you are just able to subtract the amount of volume of input that your brain experiences, and if you're able to understand how to activate this part of your brain. I'm pretty sure that maybe you've seen like these videos online on Instagram where people are saying like doing nothing for an hour to get focus back. Well, that specific time where you don't do anything, where you don't look at screens, where you have no input, is exactly where the self is built. And purpose will emerge from that. It is very, very easy if you actually think about it like that. Now, there are two versions of you. The version of you who is performing, right? And a version of who you are. And this gap in between is what you have been feeling, is what you've been calling lost. But purpose will follow. Purpose doesn't come first. Identity does. You don't find purpose and then become someone. You become someone, and purpose emerges as the natural expression of that self, okay? And the more that you try to add stuff to this performing part of you, the greater the gap becomes between who you really are. And that is why people feel lost, is because they simply know that there is a version that they should be, but they are not. And in order to become this version, we need to be still. But we have a very hard time being still because we are addicted to fucking dopamine, and we've, lowered our baseline for our nervous system. We don't really have a regulated nervous system. If you do this, you will see a significant shift in, let me just darken this up a little bit. You'll see a significant shift in how you feel, how you act, how you perform. And this is, for me, one of the biggest reasons why so many young men right now are feeling lost, is because they don't really understand themselves. It's not about not having a purpose, it's about not really understanding yourself. And once you make this identity shift, once you tap into this unlimited potential of yourself, you will see how much more you will get done. You will see how much further you can go. You will see how easy it becomes to just not give a shit about what other people think of you. You will release yourself from all of these fucking external validation needs, all of these insecurities, all of these things that you've been struggling with, all of these things that have been blocking you from becoming the version that you really want to be. And this is where fulfillment and purpose finally find a place into your life. Now, this is exactly the kind of work that I've been focused on for the past 7 months, guys, because my story was exactly the same. I reached this life, but I fell down. I hit rock bottom after having lived a very lavish lifestyle. I lived the lavish lifestyle because I didn't have a purpose, because I didn't really know who I was. And I was living on this mimic lifestyle, this mimic purpose, which brought me very far, but which didn't make me feel the thing that I really wanted to feel, right? And let's be honest, at the end of the day, we just want to feel good about ourselves. We want to wake up in a world that we have created where we just perform at our highest level, where we feel good about ourselves, where we feel fulfilled. And so many young men, so many people are struggling with that. And this is exactly the kind of work that I've been focused on. So if you want to know more about that, if you feel like it is time for you to step into that full version of yourself, if you know that there is so much more to you, but you know that there's something blocking you, you are still self-sabotaging, you're still not really being the fullest and most authentic version of yourself, you know that there is something that is out there that's in you that you can be, but you're not, and you don't know how to get there, then the link below is exactly for you. Because so you can click on the link below, guys. There's an application form where you can apply to work with me, where you can learn more about how you can actually shift your identity, create unlimited discipline, consistency, and live on a high frequency. I go through every single application myself. And if we're a fit, then I'm going to give you a call personally. So click down on the link below, guys. This is it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.